Hello, everybody, and welcome to the RV Lifestyle and Repair Club, our live Q&A. My name's Dave Solberg. I'm the managing editor, and we just got done doing a gold session where we talked about towing capacities. I got my little trailer here on there, so I just thought I'd share that with you. I'm very proud of that. So anyway, we are 2 days away from Thanksgiving, and one of the things that we tell everybody is make sure you set your clocks back a couple weeks ago and set your scale back 15 pounds tomorrow evening before you go for Thanksgiving. We got some questions here, so let's head to Dwayne, who has a 2021 Coachman Murata 35BH. What is the best sealant for the roof and around the bathroom, vents, TV antennas, the Wi-Fi, and other things that are on the roof? I don't think there are any other things left on the roof. So the first thing that I would recommend is, before we even get to the sealants, it's very important that once a year or more, I kind of like to do it twice a year, that you clean the roof and condition it. And it kind of depends on what material you have. And we have a good sample here. There's a variety of different stuff. You know, back in the 80s, it was aluminum that was painted. It was only 4-foot sheet, so there was a seam down the middle. There was a lot of maintenance with that. That seam would start to separate, so you have to put sealant in that. There wasn't a lot of washing with that, but what happened is you got oxidation of that aluminum and the black streaks coming around. So then people went to EPDM, was kind of the first wave, and that is just a rubber flexible membrane, and you can tell EPDM, it has black on the backside because it actually starts just like roofing material for the industrial industry and construction as black, and then they add the pigment color to the top of it, so it will start to chalk. The way you find out, normally you can't see this side, but if you take the vent shroud from inside on one of your roof vents, you will see some of this tucked inside, and then you can kind of look underneath. If it's black on the back, it's EPDM. If it's the same color, then it's going to be TPO, or the newer ones now, like some of the extreme ply. They call them PVC. They're a little bit more reflective, less maintenance required than some of the pebble grain EPDMs. And then, best in my opinion, is the Phylon fiberglass sheet, which you see on all the Winnebago stuff, motorized, and then some of the higher line stuff. So the first thing, let's go back to this. I would recommend Dawn dish soap, the blue soap, in the water, and I get really scientific. I put a 5-gallon bucket together and I go. So you have to make that sound when you do that. So just get a good soft bristle brush, wet the sides of the unit down really, really good, because you're going to get some chalking that comes out in the dirt, and it'll kind of, not so much stain, but it's hard to get off the windows and the sidewall and decals and stuff if you don't wet that down first. And then just start up in the upper corner away from the ladder, do sections, little 4-foot sections at a time, and just keep rinsing it off. And then to condition it, again, it depends on the type of material. Dicor has a rubber roof conditioner for EPDM. 303 Protectant, Protectol has some. So there's several of them out there. There's some for TPO. Now the Alpha systems, like this one, recommend just washing it with Murphy's oil soap and just leaving it. No other conditioner on top of it. The fiberglass really doesn't need any conditioner. You might want to do the 303 Protectant just to keep it from fading, but it really doesn't deteriorate like any of the other stuff. Now, some of the new PVC products like LaSalle has, and some of those, they claim there's no maintenance. I do still think it's a good idea to clean them with the Dawn dish soap. So once you get it cleaned and conditioned, then the next step is to look at a sealant. There's several different types of that out there as well. Winnebago recommends this. In fact, on their website, you can go to their owner resources, and you can find the actual sealant charts for what they recommend. Front cap to the roof material, around the vents, all that kind of stuff. what you want is you want to make sure you get a sealant that's designed for the material that you have. What's good for EPDM is not necessarily good for fiberglass. It takes a special one to adhere to that and to actually stay. This is called the New Flex 311. I got it at the Winnebago customer service. You can find it online. Dicor has a product like it as well. And what this is, it's a self-leveling lap sealant. So it's going to, ooze its way out. Now, you wouldn't want to use this on anything vertical because it would literally run off the seam. So then you're going to use a non-self-leveling lap sealant, and it goes on almost like toothpaste. So it's going to stick there and then not sag off of it. So you want to find out the right product you have. Now, I have had some people that love the Eternabond, and we've had a variety of different discussions on this. Eternabond, in my opinion, is good for a quick fix. I would still put some of this lap sealant over it, because what happens with this stuff is, number one, you can never take it off, or it's almost impossible to take off. You got a heat gun and a variety of things, and you may not ever have to take it off. But it does, depending on the region you're in, if you're going to be getting some really hot sun, this stuff will start to get really brittle and start to crack and break. Not right away. I've had more than, less than half, but I would say, a good number of readers that when we talked about Eternabond and put an article about different stuff, said, I put it on and 10 years later, it's still good. I do know that California RV Specialties out in Lodi, California, sees this stuff coming in all the time, just cracked like crazy. So, I would say that you need to find the right sealant for that. The most important thing is, once you get up once a year on that, or twice a year, take a look at those sealants and see if they're starting to separate. They're starting to crack. What kind of moisture penetration? You might get by with adding just a little more of that to a crack, but it starts to get a little bit further down the line. Then you're going to have to take a heat gun on low setting and a plastic putty knife and just heat that stuff and get it off and clean it up as best you can, then reapply a new set. One of the things I would not use is flex tape. This stuff does not work on an RV with the temperature changes and all that other stuff. They've got great advertising, but it's not something that I would recommend. You don't want to put any sealant around your roof air conditioner. It has a foam gasket underneath that, and it has 2 drip holes on the sides. So that condensation, that warm, moist air that gets pulled through the evaporator, is going to drop into your drip pan, go off to the sides to those holes, and then out along the outside. If you seal anywhere around that gasket, you're going to plug those holes, and that moisture is all going to stay inside your coach. So once a year, you should go in and just tighten the bolts from the inside. Just make sure that gasket is compressed properly, and you should be okay. So around the roof cap, and again, you've got a Coachman Murata, so you've got a Class A, and you've got a front cap that's hard fiberglass up on there. And I would recommend cleaning that and doing 303 protectant. Be very, very careful with your clearance lights. If you ever change the light bulb or the lens cracks or anything like that, that is notorious for pulling water in when you're going down a driving rain, especially, and literally wicking into that front cap. And then sometimes it leaks clear back in the bedroom because it follows the hollow tubing all the way back. But clearance lights have got a big hole where the wires go through in the backside. So just make sure that they're good and tight. The lenses aren't cracked. You might even want to put a little bit of a clear sealant around it. The problem with siliconing around windows and clearance lights and that stuff is really attracts dirt, and it gets really gritty looking, really bad looking. So I would be careful about putting too much on. Those are the things that I look at for vents, TV antenna. All the stuff is the same thing. It all depends on what kind of roofing material that you have. So then Kurt is here. He has a 23 Winnebago Echo with a Very heat furnace, Vario heat furnace. If I plug my space heater for the cabin and leave the vent going to the furnace, would I circulate the warm air to the outside compartments? And I'm not sure what a vario heat furnace is. If I plug in my space heater for the cabin, so with an Echo, I do not believe that you're going to get air into those outside compartments. Now, you might get some, and it's hard to tell, but what I would recommend, go on to Winnebago.com, go to their owner resources page, and then go find the 3D drawings for your rig. You can go right into the 23, and you will literally see, you can go into the heating and cooling section, and you can see where that ductwork is at, and that's how it's going to get there. But normally what happens with these units like this, and I think the Echo is a small little, I don't know if it's a class B or if it's a C, but usually you've got a furnace that's your onboard furnace, ductwork that goes to that, and then ducting that goes down the compartments. There's really no open pathways into some of those outside compartments because you would allow cold air to come back up in. It's more just a routed ductwork, whether it's the round elephant trunk, I call it, or a plenum like you would have at home. So I don't think it's going to get down in there. I do think it would get to the, the water pump area, the service center, and heat that stuff up. But normally it's not going to get to everything out there, through the ductwork that's in there. So you're going to have a tough time with that. Joshua has a 2002 Gulfstream B Touring Class C. The Suburban SF25 furnace does not heat when turned on. Took out the furnace unit and placed it on the external battery, and it worked fine. But when I reinstall it in the RV, it does not activate for heat on the thermostat. Replacing the thermostat with a new one of the same model, it seems that the wiring is only connected to the AC. I did not know there were 3 wires that weren't connected to anything on the furnace. Okay, well, let's start with the first thing. When you look at a furnace troubleshooting, the very first thing is, are you hooked to 120 volt power? Is your shoreline cord plugged in? And is it happening there, or are you trying to run just off the house batteries? And the reason I ask that is because when you're plugged into 120 volt power, your converter in your distribution center is going to provide you 13.6 or 13.2 volts all the time. And so then you have enough battery power to run this thing. If you're running just off the house batteries, and since it's a 2002, I'm sure they're not the original batteries, but if they are sulfated and they have a surface charge but then drop down, then you're not going to light your furnace. Because what happens is that when your thermostat calls for heat, it will start the blower motor. So your module board's on the furnace. It says, okay, start the blower motor. The motor starts up, purges your burner chamber with any of the old burners, soot, or anything like that. And then at the end of that, you have a sail switch. And I have a sample of one. This wouldn't be the one you have, but it does show you that when this burner assembly spins, or this fan spins, it's going to lift this switch right here. This is called a sail switch. And so if that switch doesn't hit all the way up there, it creates an open circuit here. And so it's not sending power to the board. It's saying, hey, I don't have enough power. Don't open the gas valve. Don't light the spark assembly, nothing, because we don't have enough power, and we're going to have some problems later on. So if you pull that unit out and it works on the bench, one of 2 things is happening. Well, one of 3 things. Okay, so you get your thermostat, possibly. But if that blower motor starts up and runs, but it doesn't heat, then you either have low power from that 12 volt. And that's why I say, if you plug it in, see if it works when you do that. The second thing is that you could have poor airflow. So you pull this thing out of there, it's got all this open space to draw air in and to push air out. So if I have any vents closed inside, or if I have some of those corrugated things, and I've even seen units that were engineered wrong, that they had so much tubing inside that in kinks and stuff that it couldn't push the air easy enough. So it backflowed basically and didn't raise that sail switch. So I would say look and see if any of your vents are covered with rugs or closed or anything like that. Check and see if your tubing is kinked on the inside of it, and plug it in. Make sure you've got 13.2 volts at least going to that furnace to try and kickstart it, get it going. It could also be a bad sail switch. So the things I look for is, number one, the blower motor starts up. Number two, do I hear the click of the gas valve opening up? And then an attempt to spark, do I hear a flame start? And then, what could happen is I've got the blower motor starts, I hear the click of the gas valve. Okay, then I hear try to spark, but then it doesn't spark. So that could tell me that my spark assembly is cracked and it's not going to the actual burner assembly. It's carbon tracking, which means it's going to a ground, or it's misaligned, or it's gone weak, or I have low LP pressure. If it lights and then shuts off, then I've got something with my thermal coupler, which could be low LP pressure. It could also be airflow, and that it starts up and then the batteries kind of go down a little bit. So those are the things that I would walk through. And you say, I did not know there were 3 wires that weren't connected to anything on the furnace. And so I'm not familiar with that Suburban furnace should have a thermostat that runs both the air conditioner and the lower, but you put it on cool versus temp. So anyway, I would see if you can't get a wiring diagram for that, but check those steps and see if anything makes a difference. We have CT says, I have a 2016 Coachman Leprechaun. That's a Class C. This is probably a stupid question. No, it's not. Do I have the disconnect switch on to charge the house batteries? Yes, you do. So what you've got is your batteries. So when you're plugged into Shoreline Power, 120 volt goes to the distribution center that has one of the circuit breakers for a converter. That converter then provides a 12 volt charge to your house battery. So in between your house batteries, you have a battery disconnect, it's called. So you hit that, and it literally is like taking the negative cable off of your batteries. So it will not charge your batteries. And one way you can verify that, and I've learned to never say never or always say always when it comes to the RV industry, is manufacturers do so many different things that you would go, really? Plug your unit in, hit your battery disconnect, put a multimeter on your battery, and if you're at anything under 13.2, you're not getting charged to that. Now, a charged battery should be 12.6 if it's lead acid. So that's the way you can tell, but I'm pretty sure you're not going to be able to do that. So Gary Van Horn, from a newbie, we have an Integra Regatta XL that is currently winterized. Can we run the heat in the RV without messing up what was winterized? We have an AquaHot 2500 in that unit. So I'm trying to think on the AquaHot winterization. That one is a very good question. I'm trying to remember. I did some research on that, on how to winterize it, because your AquaHot uses a glycerin antifreeze in it. There's 2 or 3 different kind of colored antifreezes that are your liquid that heats up and heats the water system in it. So most likely you should have drained all the water in that system, maybe even put RV antifreeze through the water side of it. So you should be able to use that AquaHot heater and just, on the inside of it, and provide heat through that glycerin thing and across the heat exchanger. But check your owner's manual on that. I'll do a little bit of research on it as well. And, I'm pretty sure you can do that, but let's verify it beforehand. It's a great question. I'm not that familiar with the AquaHot because we didn't use them that often. We don't see a lot of them around here, but they are becoming a lot more popular. So Dave says, I'd like to hear about winterizing my camper. My acquaintance of mine did it last year for free and did a good job, but this year I want to do it myself with my wife so we know how to do it forever. Have a resource or any info we can utilize for that. I know it's not hard because I saw the guy do it. So there's two ways to winterize, and we do have videos on the winterizing and stuff. You know, the first way is to use RV antifreeze, and you did not mention what kind of coach you have, so I don't know if you have a winterizing valve or not, but what it is that you need to run RV antifreeze, the pink stuff, through all your water pipes, your water system. So you drain the water, fresh water tank, you open all the low point drains, get all the water out of that stuff, close those things up. You drain out your 6-gallon water heater. You should have a water heater bypass, so you don't have to fill 6 gallons of RV antifreeze in that water heater. So turn that bypass and it'll just go around it, like it says bypass. And then look in your service center and see if you have a winterizing valve in there. What that does is that normally when you draw water from the freshwater tank through your water pump, it's going to pull it from the freshwater tank and run it through everything. You turn this valve and then there is a T in that and a valve that will divert and pull water out of this tube, basically, that runs into it. And I think I have a kit for that. Where did I put that? Yep. That's not it. So this is a winterizing kit. And like I say, what it is a valve here. So you put this in line, it comes from the freshwater tank, and then you either go, pull it from the tank or pull it from this hose and then run it through the rest of your system inside of it. And, usually right by the water pump, as you can see here, pretty easy to install. So what that allows you to do is you take your gallon of RV antifreeze, you put that tube in it. When you divert that, then you start your water pump and it will draw antifreeze up in there rather than trying to put 6 to 10 gallons in your freshwater tank and pull it in that way. So the first thing you do then, put your pump on, switch on, you go to the farthest faucet, you open it up until it quits coming out and that pink antifreeze comes in. Shut that off. Do that for all the interior faucets, the shower, the toilet. Don't forget the rinsing wand sprayer for the toilet. If you have an outside shower, then if you have an ice maker inside, you don't want to do that. You want to take the filter out, put the shutoff valve, then run your ice maker 2 or 3 cycles to get the water out of all that in there rather than running RV antifreeze into it. Now, the nice thing about RV antifreeze is that when it goes down the drains, it's going to go in those P-traps and, protect that because you got a little bit of water in there as well. The only thing it doesn't do is if you have a black water flush valve, then you're going to need to add some RV antifreeze to that. And what that is that in your service compartment, you have a connection, and it has, if it's right on the side of the black water tank, then you're okay. You don't have to worry about it. But most of them are remote. So the hookup's here, the tank is way inside with the flush valve. And so you've got, anywhere from a couple feet to 3 or 4 feet of hose that has water in it. And if that freezes, that will expand and it will crack that hose in there. And then all of a sudden you got a water leak that you don't even know where it's at. So about the only way to do that I have found is to either use a pump, and there's a variety of different pumps. You can go to Harbor Freight, you can go to various places, get something like this that you can hook up to that, and then just put this into some antifreeze and literally pump some antifreeze into that, and it'll displace that water into the tank, and then protect it so you'll have RV antifreeze in the tank. And the other way is if you don't have one of those, I have in the past just taken a garden hose and filled the garden hose up with RV antifreeze and then hooked the water source to it, hooked that up, and just let it run for a couple seconds. And I know that pink stuff is in there. So, some people will also use a like a sump pump or a small little portable pump, and then put it in a 5-gallon bucket, and then you can run it through your city water fill instead of the freshwater tank. The second way then is to blow all the water out of it using compressed air. So you would want to, did I bring that? Where did I put it? Right here. I brought it down. I know I did. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I built this little contraption. You can buy them pre-made. This is just a 3/4 inch air chuck that I would put to the city water fill. I put a quick disconnect with a shut-off valve in here. I got all this stuff at a home improvement store in the air compressor side with accessories. Then I hook up an air compressor to this. I dial it down to 40 PSI. I don't want it at 80. I don't want to blow out, or 120. I don't want to blow everything out. And so now I've compressed air through my city water fill. I've drained all the stuff just like I did before, drained the freshwater tank, low point drains, water heater, and shut all that stuff back up, bypass valve, then go in and open the valves till it blows air. And you have no water in the system. Now, what you have to do with this is then you have to run your water pump a little bit, because pre-water pump and in the water pump and post-water pump, you will have water in that, because the city water bypasses all that. So you will have to go in and manually do that with open. And again, don't forget about the black water tank, the flush valve, the exterior shower, the toilets. You have to do the same thing, cycling the refrigerator. The only other thing that I would recommend doing with this is taking a little bit of RV antifreeze and just dumping down each one of the sinks so that you get some antifreeze in those P-traps, just so it's not sitting there with that. So 2 different ways to do it. Again, there's some pretty easy to do. One of the things you might want to look at is Lippert has a product called Floe, F-L-O-E, and it is a small little air compressor system that gets permanently mounted inside your rig, and then it plumbs into your water lines, and you go in and so it's already there. You don't have to get a compressor, hook all this stuff up, and pretty handy. Okay. I have a 2018 Thor. This is from Alice. Wind Sport with the in and get rainwater, a 1/4. Wow. With the in. I have a Wind Sport with the in. So we're missing some words here. I get rainwater, 1/4. How tight should my slide seal be when closed? So trying to dissect this, I think you're getting rain in one of the corners. How tight should my slide seals be when closed? Most of these are going to have a bulb seal similar to this with a flapper like here. So they, a lot of times they're not all in one, but they'll have the bulb on the inside and the outside of it. And when your room comes in, that flange is supposed to secure that. And so what happens is that this will either tear apart or pull away, or it's not quite meeting up in the corner. So if you're getting one of these in the corner that you're getting water into, this needs to be compressed completely to seal that area. So somewhere you've got either these are pulling apart or torn, or the corner, when this comes up to the corner and this one comes from the top, it's not quite sealing. And so you've got a little place, and a lot of times you'll have literally a trough of water that's running directly at that stuff. So you're really going to have to take a look at these and find out, is that in good shape, or do you need to replace it? So Ray has a 1998 National RV Trade Winds. I did a lot of video work for them out in Paris, California back in the day, and we have replaced all the batteries as the rig sat for 3 years before we got it. Followed the diagram online to be sure all was hooked up right. The batteries seem to be bubbling when the rig is plugged into shoreline power. Any clues? So it kind of depends on, now National RV would have used either an all-in-one distribution center with a WIFCO or with a converter in it, or a WIFCO second converter. So, the first question I have is, what kind of batteries did you put in? If they're lead acid batteries, then they're going to boil. What you do is, when you're plugging in that unit, and I would go get a multimeter and just take a typical, I think I got one. There it is. And you don't have to have anything fancy. I get these at Harbor Freight because I don't need to be as specific as a Fluke for $300. These I've seen on sale for $4.95. So you want to put this on to the DC side here. Click that on. So you're going to take that and then plug the unit in and go to your batteries and find out, what am I getting for voltage out of those batteries? And you should be getting, with that unit plugged in, 13.6 until the batteries get up to 12.6, and then it should float down to 13.2. And you will get some boiling out of it. That's the whole point at 13.6. Or you might even have with the trade winds, you might have an inverter that is doing a high impact high impact charge to start with. Could be 14 to 16 volts, and that's designed to break up the sulfation in it, and it's supposed to work its way down. So what I would recommend is get one of these, go in, plug it in, find out where it's at, come back a little bit later, maybe even unplug it. If your batteries are at 12.6 and you plug it in and that thing is still running at 13.6 or higher, then it's not shutting off. It's not going into that maintenance mode, and then it will keep boiling the batteries. But you will get some gassing out of those lead acid batteries bubbling, and that's what it's doing. It's breaking up the sulfation. That's how it's charging. And you said you followed the diagram online to be sure. And I don't know for sure if you have 6-volt batteries hooked in series or 12 volts. I can't remember what National did. I think they use 6 volts. So 6-volt batteries are the like Trojan that you would golf cart batteries. So you'd hook positive to negative. That means they're hooked in series. That gives you a 12-volt bank. Those are going to even gas a little more than a 12-volt battery that's in there. So you should be able to diagnose what kind of charge you're getting, and if it's not going into that maintenance charge, then you're going to boil your batteries and drain them dry. Ron has a 2020 Keystone 294 RL, and we did have the dealer apply the Eco RV Pro sealant on the exterior of our fifth wheel. It does have a 5-year warranty. What do you recommend us to do to help ensure the exterior maintains the nice gloss shine going forward? Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the aftermarket stuff because they come and go so much, and 5 years from now that they're out of business. I typically, you've got Phylon fiberglass on the outside of this, and what is recommended by Phylon, Chemlite, Crane, whoever you want to call them, is to use McGuire's boat and RV wax. It's got a UV protection built onto the side of it. That will keep that gel coat. And when you talk about the nice shine, is you have, and I think you can kind of see it shining here, is the exterior, and this one has doesn't have the real thick gel coat. You can kind of see the hair cells of the fibers of the fiberglass in it. The more of the gel coat that's on here, the shinier it will be, and the less you'll see of those. And people want that automotive finish, and that's what you're trying to protect, is that gel coat. So, I would recommend the McGuire's. It's a boat and RV. I think it's a 52 is what they call it. But if you go on to the Phylon side and look for their maintenance, their service PDF, service and maintenance, it'll give you those steps to do that. So I'm not familiar with Eco RV Pro sealant, but there's a lot of that stuff out there that it just kind of jumps in when the RV industry's up. Dealers got it. That's extra income for them to put it on at the time you buy the rig. It makes it look shiny, yeah. But another product that I think is really good is 303 Protectant. it helps with UV degradation, keeping that from going too cloudy. Curtis says, I have a 2006 Raptor, a 2612 on my landing gear. It keeps blowing the inline 30 amp fuse. So sounds like an airplane. My landing gear. You're coming in too hot, Curtis. That's the problem. I've replaced the motor, gearbox, and follow landing gear along with the switch and follow landing gear. Only thing is, it's not new, is the drive landing gear. Nothing seems to be in a bind. Some days it works great, and then there is others when it blows the fuses. What is my option? That one is a very difficult one without getting in and putting a meter on, an amp meter, to find out, evidently something is blowing that fuse that is getting higher than 30 amps. I mean, that sounds pretty simplistic, but that is the bottom line, is that we're getting more than the 30 amps in there. One of the things I would recommend is to take a look at the type of 30 amp fuse you're putting in. There's two different fuses that you can get, and one is a fast blow fuse, and the other one is just a regular automotive fuse. And if you get the fast blow, a lot of times these units, it's 2006, so things are getting weak. Things are going to have a little bit of a higher amp draw on it. I doubt that you have anything else. When you're blowing the 30 amp fuse, is it in the distribution center or is it at the motor of the actual leveling jacks? When you're saying landing gear, I'm sure you're referring to the leveling jacks. That same gear or motor typically is going to run your slide rooms as well. 2006, you probably have at least one slide room on that, but if it's doing it when you're running your jacks up and down, about the only thing you can really do is to get a meter on that motor and find out what is that amp draw in that motor. So I mean, it may not seem like anything is binding, but it doesn't take much sometimes with these motors. So you've got to know what it's actually drawing off that motor as you're running that and getting a meter on it. I would try 2006. You probably have Power Gear, which is owned by Lippert now. I doubt you would have had the Lippert actual system in that. Could be Quickie, but if you said you've replaced the motor, the gearbox, and following landing gear along with the switch, follow landing. Okay, so, but only thing that is not new is the drive landing gear. So the main landing gear. And I would suggest, cleaning that really well, lubricating it. Again, depends on what brand it is. I know HWH recommends WD-40, but most of the Power Gear stuff doesn't. They recommend cleaning it really well and then using, something that is like a synthetic or a, I don't have it here. A couple good products. Corrosion X, and this is the XD, and the Corrosion X kills rust. Very good, probably the best lubricators that I have seen out in the market, and then wipe them off really good just to, see if that does any extra. But you can also get CRC has a lubricant. Oh, there it is. That's one that a lot of manufacturers recommend, the CRC lubricant. That is, it dries up really well and doesn't pull dirt and dust and stuff in to gum it up. So those are the two that I would recommend. And then also I'd give Lippert a call in their power gear division if it's a power gear, just to kind of walk through that and see what that. I'm not familiar with how that drive landing gear works, with the follow landing gear, but hopefully that gives you something to start with. Let's see. So we have no more questions that came in. And I'm just going to go real quickly. Before we go, we got our little setup here. And the reason I did this is we talked about finding towing capacity. And, in the past, it was fairly simple. You would go to the Trailer Life Towing guides, and you would find out what your truck, what cab configuration, the size of the engine, and you would get a towing capacity. And it's changed quite a bit now because they've gotten a lot more specific. They show much higher towing capacities. My 2002 Chevy had a towing capacity of 5,000. 2016 I have now, it says, I was told 11,000. It's like, wow. But they've shifted the math. So you can't load your truck up to gross vehicle weight rating and pull 11,000 pounds like you could in the past. So the best thing to do is to weigh your rig. I mean, you can go in and look at the recommendations by Chevy and Ford and even Trailer Life, but that is not specific. You really need to go weigh the rig. And so I recommend a cat scale like this, and you can find them at any Flying J's, Pilots, and you bring your rig and put the front wheels on the first pad, the back wheels on the second pad, and the rear of the trailer on the third pad. And so what I'm looking for is I want to know what is my gross axle weight rating on the front, gross axle weight rating on the back, and what my trailer weighs. And you should be able the true way, the true way to find out what your towing capacity is out of this truck is to look at gross combined weight rating and payload. So I found the gross combined weight rating of my rig was 14,000 pounds. And so I went and weighed this, and I was at, I got the numbers here, but, front axle was 3,300 pounds. The back axle was about 3,200 pounds. And then my trailer weighed about 4,000. So I had a 14,000 pound gross combined weight rating. And this overall unit came in at just about 10,000 pounds, a little bit over that. So I'm good in my overall weights, but then I want to look at this back wheel, and I only had about 500 pounds, because what I did is then I drove around, disconnected my trailer, weighed this without that on there. So I found, first of all, I knew that I had about a 4,500 pound gross axle weight rating on the backside. I only had 3,200 pounds on it. So I was okay there. But then when I disconnected it, I came back and I found that I had about 600 pounds on this back end, which is good. I want at least 10% to 15% on a trailer so that I don't get swaying when I'm going down the road or porpoising. You want a little more than that on a fifth wheel that's going to be back in this back bed. So getting that gross combined weight rating, making sure that you're not heavy on the back axle here is important in finding out towing capacity, not just by going to that number that shows up. Even in my owner's manual here, it says on page 335, that I have 1,500 four-wheel drive, double cab, standard box, V8 5.3 liter with a 3.42. I have a 9,200 pound trailer capacity. I can't just go by that. That is with one person inside it at 150 pounds, nothing else in there, not counting options, not counting the variety of different things. That's just a ballpark estimate. You really need to weigh that, coach, find out what your gross combined weight rating is, which in my case is 15,000 pounds. So then I know, I'm okay, but I can't go over this back axle weight rating. So with that, I think we're pretty much done with questions. Looking back up to see Wind Sport. Raptor was the last one. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. A little early for Thanksgiving this year, but everybody have a great time. Stay safe, drive safely. If you're RVing out there, hope it's a warm place that you're RVing with. We got family coming in, so we're looking forward to that. And I appreciate everybody coming out. So have a wonderful evening, wonderful Thanksgiving. We'll see you next month.